Hello and welcome to Unjustified, where we always cover the truth, the facts, the good, the bad, the ugly, on an unbiased and sometimes very unpopular opinion. Okay, we're going to be talking about something in this video that I have seen discussed time and time again, and it is very telling, and it actually even was something that I believe, that I observed, actually took Chris back a few steps himself, and that is the commercial that came on when he was standing in Nate's house watching the footage of him loading his truck. And that commercial came from American Horror Story Season 8. American Horror Story Season 8, if you're not aware, is very different. It is even themed the apocalypse. Many people believe, and I did make a video on the whole paranormal things, that possible paranormal things that surround this case, and many people believe that it was a sign from Shanann, that he needed to tell the officer she was pregnant. Also a sign, possibly, to tell where they were or even what happened to them. Other people think it was just a coincidence. Just a coincidence that commercial happened to air the very moment that Nate took the cam footage from his camera off of the TV and put it back on his regular TV. It was a coincidence that that commercial just popped up in the very beginning now. Not the middle, not the end, not a couple of seconds into the commercial. No, it comes up in its entirety. Now, that was just a coincidence, and that's likely. I'm not saying it's not. And then, after hearing another creator tell me and others something to notice very closely about the footage, then I was like really shocked. I just didn't know what to think about maybe why this commercial did happen to just come up out of the blue. Okay, we're going to go over each one. And I want you to tell me what you think. Was it any of the things we're fixing to talk about, show you? Or do you have a different scenario about this? Either way, there's no way anyone can sit there and admit or say that it was not highly odd, highly unusual, and very precise timing that this commercial came on. So let's talk. Now, as most of us know, there's many creators on YouTube, and most all have their own theory as to why this happened, why this occurred, that things led up to this. Okay, and this American Horror Story, and there is another creator that has touched on this quite a lot, and her name is Megan J. I'll put her link in the description box. She has touched on this quite in depth on her theory of this. But this particular season, Season 8, it was entitled The Apocalypse. And they were planning to take the viewers on an even scarier trip. And they're not for the faint at heart. It says in the first poster, a hand, which appears to belong to the devil himself, reaches across to tickle a baby, or like its organs. It's unclear which. Luckily, the baby isn't real. It is just a doll, but still. And then it goes on to say, in the second image, the same terrifying hand with its long spiky fingernails covers the baby's mouth. The image is perhaps even more disturbing than the first. Okay, so let's talk about the few things that I have heard around that is the reason why this very odd commercial came up at such a very awkward time, and why it may have triggered Chris to say, hey, she's pregnant also. But first, let's look at that little clip for just a moment.
What else can I do with this?
My detective just showed up, so he'll probably want to talk to you. You'd probably, like I said, he might have you call at the bank and see if there's any kind of activity.
Because if there was any sort of action out
On
there,
his camera's
I
up.
would have got it.
Like
Right.
we had issues the other week.
Diesel.
You're good.
But yeah, I thought nothing.
Nothing for the rest of the day.
No, that's it.
She's pregnant as well.
How far along?
14, 15 weeks.
One of the reasons that many people believe that commercial came on at that very moment was because commercials are scheduled to air, and I've heard weeks, months before time that they do air. And so I went and done a little research, and that is true, but not necessarily that long before they are set to air. The actual show is set to air, such as American Horror Story. And the research I found is here on this site, and I will link it in the description box if you want to come and look at it yourself. But it talks about broadcast television networks and, what all it takes for them to air a commercial and how long they are set to air prior to their actual show airing. And it says about a week to 10 days before a show airs, commercial scheduling personnel record the advertisements in the show to achieve contract objectives. The process of recording the commercials is traditionally done manually and is extremely laborious. Though most upfront market contracts run through the entire broadcast year, it is not sufficient to have percentages met on an aggregate basis for the entire contract. Most clients check whether their requirements are being met on a weekly basis. The broadcast week is assumed to start on a Monday in the industry. So, you're welcome to come here and look. But from everything I have read on this, and it kind of gives an overview of how they do their airing schedules for commercials, how networks do. And from what I see, it usually starts airing about a week to 10 days before it airs. And then they have specific days or times or whatever they're going to air it on. Now, that said, that is one of the reasons many people do believe that commercial came up at that exact moment. So if it was 10 days before that season aired, or maybe a week to 10 days before the season 8 Apocalypse aired, maybe that would make sense. To me, it would still be odd that it came up at the exact moment, exact time, at the very beginning, instead of in the middle, at the end, or even 10 seconds into the commercial. But it came up at the very beginning, which to me, that was a heck of a coincidence, right? Okay, let's look and see when season 8, American Horror Story, first aired. American Horror Story Apocalypse is the 8th season of the FX horror anthology television series American Horror Story. It premiered on September the 12th, 2018, and it concluded on November the 14th. Okay, well, y'all know that was August the 13th. So that is more than a month before the actual premiere of this season started. So yeah, that's a little early on, but it could happen, right? I mean, it could happen. They could pay Dextra and had it premiering for an entire month. So that could happen. I give it that, right? It could happen. Still, as soon as he turned off Xfinity and there it was at the very beginning, that's still, even if it was 4, 5, 6 seconds into the commercial when he stopped Xfinity, it wouldn't get to me as bad, or if it was at the end of the commercial or the middle of the commercial. But for it to just be there, and we're going to look at something else in just a second about that when it came up, because if you noticed, and we'll look at it again if you didn't, you don't have to go back. But if you noticed, as soon as his cam footage went off, it wasn't this commercial that did come up. It was something Wild, National Geographic Wild. It was premiering that. And then all of a sudden it went to this. But we're going to talk about that as well. So, moving right along, it brings us to the point where people, and there are many people that completely believe in the paranormal, and they believe in signs, and they believe in spirits, and I made a whole other video on that, but just like it says here on this website, and you will see the website address down there, afterlifeuncovered.com. This is where we're at, and if you want to come here and read this yourself, be more than happy to. It's very interesting, actually. But it says, the beautiful thing about the afterlife is that it exists, no matter what we believe. Well, I'm kind of a skeptic, but, this case has almost made me a believer of anything. Okay, now let's look down, and it says 10 common ways spirit communicates. Number 6. Let's look at number 6 here. Electrical activity. For those on the other side, not only is it fun to learn how to use energy to connect, many spirits learn that the electrical devices is quite easy to manipulate. For this reason, it is actually quite common for those in spirit to manipulate TV, lights, and toys to get your attention. They can turn things on and off, change channels, and make things move. So, there could possibly be your answer for all of those of you who believe this is what it was. It was a sign from Shanann saying, hey, Chris, tell them I'm pregnant. Maybe that, and it'd be right there again. Let's move right into another very, very interesting one that I had never thought about, didn't even notice until a creator, True Tam, brought this to my attention. I had never even noticed it now. I will also link her in the description box below. She now has a YouTube channel as well. And she is the one that brought this to my attention, which is very, very odd in my opinion. Even more odd than the two things we have just discussed about what a coincidence it was that this commercial aired at that second. Okay, let's look at this one. Okay, now here we are back on the footage, but we're at the part that I want you to see. Okay, now I want you to pay close attention when Nate turns off the footage and the actual commercial that does come up. It's something Nat Geo Wild or something like that. And then keep your eye on Nate really closely. And before I tell you what Tam pointed out to me, I want to see if you see it. Now remember, keep your eye on Nate. Okay, here we are back on the footage, but we're at the end where Nate is about to turn off the footage of him loading his truck. Now, what I want you to do for me is when he does stop this footage, I want you to notice that it is like the Nat Geo Wild channel that does come up originally. Then, watch Nate very closely. Keep your eye on Nate, and then we'll come right back, and I'll talk about it.
Like we had issues the other week.
Diesel.
You're good.
But yeah, I thought nothing.
Nothing for the rest of the day.
No, that's it.
Did you see that? Nat Geo is the actual commercial that came on. Nate actually took his remote, put it to his mouth, set something into it, and then this comes up. There you go. Did Nate manipulate, or not manipulate, did Nate have this on his DVR or something to that effect to trigger Chris himself, or what? I mean, or did he just have a thought, no, we need to put it on. I don't know. Or did Nate not have anything to do with it, and it was just a coincidence that he was talking into his remote? Let's look at it one more time. Keep your eye on Nate.
But yeah, I thought nothing.
Nothing for the rest of the day.
No, that's it.
She's pregnant as well.
Now, this is the remote that would come with Nate's Xfinity home setup. He has TV, internet, security. It looks like, his house is set up through Xfinity. And this is the remote that comes with that setup. And as you see, you can use your voice to quickly find your favorite content, tune into channels, search, and control your DVR. So, that said, is it possible that Nate, when the Nat Geo Wild commercial was going to air, he decided to play American Horror Story, or did he have that in his DVR already? Because it is a very odd, weird commercial. I mean, airing, preview, whatever you want to call it. It's very out there. And it's very telling, and we're about to watch the complete commercial because some of you may not have either seen my other video or have never seen the preview. Could Nate have manipulated that commercial to come up at that moment? Or was it just a coincidence that it happened to come up at that very second, the very beginning, bounced in front of the wild Nat Geo Wild commercial? Who knows? Or was it Shanann throwing out a sign? I want to know what your opinion is, because ever since Tam brought that to my attention, it has really bugged me. It just has. Okay, let's watch that commercial in its entirety. There's an explosion, there's oil there, and then he turns it off. After Chris says she's pregnant, he turns it off. And then he's just flipping randomly. I don't know. Is it a coincidence? Is it a sign? Or did Nate actually manipulate that to happen? I don't know. What do you think? And I have this on a video I made back in May of last year, but, and I go on to say, if you've never saw this commercial, it's very telling. The fetus, the oil-covered skull in a shallow grave, the oil-filled explosion, the Wiccan star, the two little scorpions hatching, the mask, the fetus, umbilical cord attached to a clod of dirt. It's just terrible. It's just the hourglass, the umbilical cord, the explosion, the purple mask. But there's two in this shallow grave, and then here two little scorpions are inside a whatever. And then it's like the Christian stained glass turns to pentagram, and then it flips, the times run out. It's just freaky, y'all. Tell me what you think. What is your final decision? What do you think? Coincidence? Was it a message from beyond? Was it Shanann giving a message? Was it Nate manipulating it? Was it just set to air that way when he touched his remote? Who knows? You guys tell me what your thoughts are. Truly, we'll probably never, ever know. There's no probably to it. I don't think we will ever know. It's always interesting to hear what other people think. To me, Nate, that looks very peculiar. But I don't know why he would have done that, or I just don't know, y'all. I will link True Tam in the description, Megan J in the description, as well as the link about the broadcasting times for commercials if you're interested in looking at that. But thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, this is Unjustified.